And
Okay.
okay, okay. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic podcast. I'm really excited about my guest today. She's one of my favorite guests, and I wanted to clear up something like before we get into this, and I'll have Miss Aida address this as well. Like, we're not doing anything dark or satanic or anything like that. Miss Aida's not like that. I mean, I call her the good witch. She's a good witch because she practices magic. I mean, don't cross her because she could hex you, but like, she doesn't deliberately practice dark magic towards anybody. And I just wanted to get that out there. She's amazing. I have like 8 shows with Miss Aida on my Rumble channel. That's how many times she's been on my show. But like, just a little bit more about my guest. And I believe she was raised Christian as well. Like, she was raised Christian and pagan. Like, so she can talk about that. But a little bit more about my guest. My guest is Miss Aida. She's an author, a teacher, and she's literally one of the most respected voices in modern hoodoo and spiritual protection magic. She was born into a Cuban family that practiced Santeria, Palo, Brujería. Miss Aida has carried the magic of her ancestors throughout her life. A natural-born medium and hoodoo practitioner, she has received numerous initiations in Santeria and Palo traditions. Beyond her magical work, Miss Aida is also a registered nurse and a proud member of the U.S. Air Force, holding a Master's of Science degree. She is an acclaimed author of Hoodoo Justice Magic, Hoodoo Cleansing and Protection Magic, and Figural Candle Spells, which is recognized internationally. And she's recognized internationally as a teacher, a speaker, and a spiritual consultant. And I always love to have her on around Halloween time. You can follow her work at www.missaida.com. That's missaida.com. And you can join her Facebook group at facebook.com/Miss Aida Psychic. Some of the things that you can look forward to that we'll be talking about tonight: some hoodoo justice and protection magic, candle spell techniques and figural magic, ancestor spirits and crossroads power, Santeria and Palo initiations explored, and how to spiritually protect your home. And this season of Halloween, because it is Samhain, it's Halloween, and we have a real witch with us. And with all that said, I'd like to give her a big warm welcome back to the show. Miss Aida, thank you so much for coming back on, and happy Samhain. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So, pretty soon is Samhain. And, as I've told you before, Halloween is October 31st. But Samhain, when the veil actually breaks and there's no veil between our world and the spiritual world, that happens the full moon closest to October 31st. And this year it is November 5. So for you guys that may be concerned about spirits and all that, that activity lasts for 3 days. So you have to be concerned if you're leery of the spirits. You have to be concerned until November 9. Then the veil starts closing up again.
Wow. Have you noticed in your own life that have you had more communication with spirits around this time and stuff like that?
Well, I was going to tell you a little story, and I thought, now is the time to talk about it. But I had a very, very best friend. In fact, I'm going to talk about this book also because it's just published, Traditional Hoodoo and Conjure. And I dedicated the book to this man, but he was my very, very, very best friend. And I got mad at him for something. And, he's been my best friend for like 40 years. And I got mad at him about something. I didn't talk to him for 5 years. And he died in August, and his wife and I are not friends. So nobody told me, right? So around Samhain, somebody texted me and, or PM'd me on Facebook and said, do you know that Tom died? And I'm like, oh my God. And I couldn't find anything. Then I saw that he died, and he started showing up, and he couldn't speak. And I was like, what happened? What happened? What happened? And this is just so weird the way all of this happened. So anyway, he couldn't speak. So then he brought his father with him on another night to speak to me because he couldn't speak. And I was like, well, how did you die? How did you die? Then I found out ordered his death certificate, I found out that he hanged himself. And it was like, that's why he couldn't speak. So then, he kept coming to me every night. Now, this is all during October. We're getting closer and closer to that full moon. And why did you kill yourself? Why did you kill yourself? Why did you kill yourself? And I'm screaming and yelling this every night. Out of the clear blue sky, his wife, who has never called me in her life, calls me and talked to me for, I kid you not, 7 hours nonstop. And told me why he killed himself. And then when that was over, that was like really towards the full moon. And then he came back and I helped him to cross over. And it was so weird because after that full moon, never anything again. And then last year, I told you a story that had happened to me, that I ran into a real entity at the grocery store. And she looked like flesh and blood. And that one was really tough. So entities come in different shapes and forms, but they all show up. And it's a time when good entities and bad entities roam free.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to ask you about was, one thing I wanted to clarify was that, maybe you could tell people a little bit about yourself, because I had some people reach out to me and they were scared because I was having a witch on, and I was like, not all witchcraft is evil. I was like, some people got to get this out of their head that witchcraft's evil. That's not it. You were raised somewhat Christian, right? Half Christian.
Catholic. I'm still Catholic. Yeah. So there are African diaspora religions and traditions, and it incorporates magic with Catholicism. Okay. And in some, like in Santeria, you can't even initiate into the craft unless you're a baptized Catholic. I am a Catholic. Okay. I'm not a pagan. I am a Catholic. I just practice magic. And my books, like this book here, Traditional Hoodoo and Conjure, and I teach you how to be a formidable spellcaster. It's all Christian prayers. All of them are psalms. We believe that psalms are powerful. We believe that God is wonderful. Jesus is wonderful. The saints, okay, all of them. So we pray to these entities. There's nothing evil about what I do. Hoodoo is a Christian-based religion. Santeria is a Catholic-based religion. So no, it's not evil.
Yeah. I thank you for clarifying that. That's interesting. And tell us a little bit about your new book, Miss Aida. Where did you go in this book? Because I know you have a bunch of books out about hoodoo. But where
I actually have 2 books out. So I published, this one got published in July the 4th, and it's called Figural Candle Spells, casting magic with the power of, or conjuring magic with the power of fire. It's got everything you've ever wanted to know about candles, but were afraid to ask. And then when you see all these different candles in different shapes, I tell you how to work with them and to manifest your desires. And it's highly acclaimed. Every single person that's read it just absolutely loves it. And I go into depth, because I'm a researcher. I have a master's degree. I always make sure that my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed. And I research the history of candles from 550,000 years ago, right? And I bring the reader right up to date, right to today. I also talk about the fire. And what's really great about this book, Figural Candle Spells, is I cover fire safety in great detail. And I even interviewed a fire station chief. So his interview's in there. It's really cool. And then this one just came out last week. It's called Traditional Hoodoo and Conjure. And I teach people how to be formidable spellcasters. And you'll know the hows and the whys of everything. Lots of prayers in this book, lots of prayers in this book, okay? Nothing evil. And there's about 125 spells, a whole bunch of rituals, recipes, and nothing's evil. But I've got everything you've ever wanted to know about hoodoo, but we're afraid to ask, is in this book. And those are the
Wow,
that I have.
that's
So
amazing.
with,
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
with Halloween, and you had mentioned the protection magic. Okay, if you want to go there, okay. I had told you already, and I want to say hello to everybody in the chat room because I can't join the chat unless I connect to something, and I don't know what the heck it is. But anyway, that veil is broken, and good spirits and bad spirits can come out, right? Or they do come out. And all around the world, people know about this. They've known about it for thousands of years, and all around the world they have different names. So here we call it Halloween, and the pagans call it Samhain, but the Celtic pagans. But in Japan and everywhere else, there's different names because they all know the same thing, that veil is broken. It's interesting to read the history and how people from all around the world know that that veil is broken. And it's a cool thing. Like, you got Mexico, you got Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. It's just all over the world. But just be careful with the veil being broken. You know what I mean?
I have a
Because
question for you. Oh, sorry. I mean, was there ever like a conflict of interest with you being Catholic and your witchcraft as well, or being like kind of like a good witch, or like like, I mean, I know if someone crosses you, you'll hex them, but like like, but like, did you ever have a conflict of interest being a Catholic and being a witch at the same time?
no, not at all. And it is my I'm going to get a lot of haters for this, but it's my very, very, very firm belief that it was the church leaders that led us to believe that magic is bad. Okay. They say astrology's bad. And let me give you an example of why magic and astrology, there's a lot of hypocrisy here, because when Jesus was born, right, the three wise men followed the star to find the baby Jesus. Okay. If you look at the original prints of those, it was the three magi, magicians. Okay. And they were also astrologers. So that kind of blows that theory, it blows the other theory. And then they say, oh, dream prophecy. Well, we got Joseph with that coat. And I found out just recently that the prophets of the Bible, they're actually taught to be prophets. Okay. And what did she say actually?
This is my friend Sovereign Cosmic Wildman. He's a guy. He says actually Catholicism incorporates a ton of pagan practical traditions that are universal if you study Catholicism's symbology a bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. You see those gargoyles on the church. Okay. And by the way, I talk about this in the Figural Candle book. Okay. Initially, this was surprising because I did a ton of academic research also, but I don't write that way. But initially, the Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox churches wouldn't light candles because they said it was a pagan thing. And then they eventually adopted candles, and then they even adopted the way that the pagans use them. So there were certain numbers for certain rituals, right? So you use so many candles for this ritual and so many candles for that ritual. And then the Catholics, had this way of condemning the pagans by saying that, this is a true way, and it's just everything. They've incorporated the gargoyles that guard the church. And Halloween, by the way, is also a compromise. Why is it called Halloween? Why don't they call it Samhain? Because it comes from All Holy Day. Okay, so initially the Catholic Church made a compromise and they said, well, we'll honor the saints. Okay, and so we'll call it All Hallows Eve. And that's how we got Halloween, right? Then another priest came along. I think it was around 300 or 400 AD. And he says, no, all souls ought to be honored, not just the saints, right? So now we have All Souls Day. All of this is a compromise for Samhain.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And I got a question. When it comes to spell work, like if people do spells against people and it's not justified, can't that come back on them times 10?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And I've written a couple of books on that. And there are ways, but all spells have to be justified. They really do, or they will. They'll come back and bite you. And let me tell you, you said initially when you introduced me that if you get me mad, I'll curse you. And there are people that have really gotten me very, very, very mad, and I haven't done a doggone thing, and there's one person that double crossed me so badly that I refuse to curse this person because my anger, that energy output, is so profound that I'm afraid I might kill her. So I won't do any spells on her. Even talking about her right now, and this happened about 4 years ago, I'm still angered. You know what I mean? So
Was it that woman who messed up with the situation with your dog? Was that it?
No, this is somebody else. No, somebody, yeah, but what you're referring to is a woman that poisoned my dog. And yeah,
Because I know you're an animal lover too, and I know you really loved your dogs throughout the past. I know we talked about that in the past.
yeah, she had a thing for me because I'm half Cuban, and she didn't want me in the neighborhood, so she would have her children and all the what do you call it, school chums. They would all harass me every time I go outside. I'd get harassed, in my own backyard, and it was one thing after another because I stood up to her and told her where to go. And it got worse and worse. And then, I told this story. She was such an evil woman, an evil, evil woman. And then she came out one day and complained. Now, my dogs don't bother anybody, okay? And we have fences, and she complained. She made a comment. She didn't like the fact that I had 3 dogs. And I told her, mind your own business. And next thing I know, my highly trained dog, he's a Shih Tzu 3, and he was also a therapy dog. He was poisoned. And that's when I had enough of her. And she was so evil that it took me 2 years for my spells to work. And the weird thing about it is one of the spells that I did, I wanted to freeze her. So I had a cloth doll. And what I did was I had a plastic container, like a tub. Okay. So what I did was I filled it halfway with water, stuck the doll in there, stuck it in the freezer. Now, the reason it's only filled halfway is because whatever you do in a freezer spell, that will float to the top. So when that froze, half of that doll was stuck to the block of ice. I then put more water in, right, and put a lid on it and stuck it back in the freezer. When I took it out, that doll representing her, which is called an effigy, was literally stuck in between 2 blocks of ice. I went in the basement, my freezer in the basement, to check on it 2 weeks later, and that damn doll was sitting up. It was sitting up. Okay, it was like a morgue where the dead person sits up. It was like, oh my God. She was so evil. It took 2 years, one thing after another. And,
Maybe she was a witch herself. Maybe she was secretly a witch herself.
I think her guardian spirits, I think, were demonic. I mean, it was kind of weird because I investigated her and it seems like everybody around her died. You know, it was just like this relative died, that relative died. And it's like there's something evil. I don't think she's a witch because it finally did work. You know what I mean? It's just that some people are very, very tough to put spells on. If they're protected by evil, like she is, you know what I mean? How can you hate somebody? I mean, it was hatred. It was just hatred, and I just don't get it. But she's ever since the spell worked, she's never bothered me again, ever.
Yeah. And then what I wanted to ask you was, can you share about how your background and because I want to get into your books here in a little bit, but can you share about how your background in Santeria, Palo, and Brujería shaped your path as a hoodoo practitioner and author?
Okay, so I was born and raised into this. Okay, so growing up, I always thought my family was weird. All right, so I was born and raised. My family practiced this. Okay. And then I became an initiate myself, and I just didn't like the animal sacrifices. They started taking a toll on me. And the very, very, very last time I'll never forget, I had a chicken. Even though we eat these things, it still bothered me. And I had a chicken, and my German Shepherd dog, Athena, she gave me this look. This look, I'll never forget this look for the rest of my life. I didn't hurt the chicken. And I put it down. I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't do any more sacrifices. So then I found hoodoo. All right. And I took an interest in hoodoo, no animal sacrifices. But the thing with Palo and Santeria is there's African roots to these practices. Okay. In Cuban Brujería, there's African roots in these practices, as there is with hoodoo. So when I discovered hoodoo, I learned all about it. I joined a group for a while, and it just paralleled what I knew so very, very well. But there were no animal sacrifices, and it made me very, very happy. And the spells are effective. They're really, really great spells.
Does there? I mean, like, does there have to be animal sacrifice in magic? I didn't think there had to be. Like, does there? I mean, like, does it? Is it? I mean, like, how does that? I mean, does there have to? In a lot of magical practices, is there sacrifice? And
No, and well, I mean, if you want to go back, if you really want to go back, okay, and look at the Old Testament of the Christian Bible, or the Torah of, the Hebrew Torah, which is the first 5 books of Moses, these people made animal sacrifices to God all the time, right? And then but they could only do it at the temple, right? So Solomon built that temple, and, I mean, as time progressed, before they were just doing sacrifices, they would sacrifice a lamb, or you can read about this in the Old Testament, or the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. They did it all the time. And then when King Solomon built the temple, then they changed the rules that you could only make sacrifices at the temple. When the temple was destroyed, the Jewish people didn't do it anymore. However, I have heard, I don't know if this is true, but because I don't live in New York, but I have heard that the Hasidic Jews still sacrifice chickens to God. So sacrifices is a religious thing, and I don't know if they do it all around the world. I have no clue. Okay, but it is, when you're talking about Africa and African magic, and that's Egyptian, it comes from Egypt, that continent is what I'm looking for. And you've got Israel on that continent, right? So you have animal sacrifices coming from that continent. I can't speak for the other metaphysical practices because I don't know. I can't answer that question. But I
Yeah.
don't think the Wiccans do, because their creed is, if it harm none, do as you will. So
Yeah,
I don't.
that is the Wiccan. I always thought the Wiccans don't practice that because they, especially like white witches. Like Stevie Nicks was the first white witch. Like not, and we don't. When we say white witch, we don't mean like not. I mean, I don't think she was the first one in history. I think she was the first one to be public. And when we say white witch, guys, we mean like a good witch, like Miss Aida is kind of like a white witch in a way. Like. You're a white witch that knows how to do some dark stuff as well too, right? All forms of magic.
Yeah. So it's called a two-handed conjure worker, where you can do positive magic or negative magic. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
neutral. I'm neutral.
Yeah.
And by the way, to answer another question too is, we believe, in my practices in hoodoo and the other, we believe that our power comes from God. Okay. So, and your power comes, we all have power, it just depends on how much you suppress it, out of fear. And that fear comes from the church leaders. Let me tell you how bad when I was growing up in the Catholic Church, we were not allowed to read the Bible. Okay. And, they changed that rule. I don't know how many years ago, but we weren't allowed to read the Bible. We had to let, the priest interpret the Bible for us. Like, we're a bunch of morons. And you can find a lot of discrepancies in the Bible. Like the church leaders don't want us to know that reincarnation exists, right? And oh yeah, there's no such thing as reincarnation. There's 2 instances in the Bible, okay, with Jesus Christ. And one of them is when he and the apostles went to meet John the Baptist for the first time. And one of the apostles says, "Is he Elijah that came back?" And Jesus didn't say, "No, you moron, there's no such thing as reincarnation." Jesus didn't say that. Jesus said, "No, no, no, this is a different soul." In another part of the Bible, there was a blind boy. Okay. One of his apostles asked him what that blind boy did in another life to deserve the blindness that he has today. Jesus didn't say, "Oh, no, no, you idiot, there's no such thing as reincarnation." Instead, Jesus answered, it was a lesson he had to learn in this life. So the Bible's been screwed around with so many times. In fact, Queen Victoria was the last person to mess around with that Bible. All
Yeah.
right. And
I
you
wanted
got,
to tell you, there was a woman that used to come on Art Bell. I think I've told you about her before. She was pretty popular on Art Bell. Her name was Evelyn Paglini, and she was a Catholic as well, but she was a witch, but she was a strega, which means, I guess that means the good walkers, the Benedante in Italy. She was an Italian, and or she was American, but Italian. But she also said that she practiced natural magic, and she would tell Art Bell, she said the power of magic comes from God. And she said it only comes from God.
right, right.
So
Funny you should mention that, because George Norrie said that I remind him of her. And
you do. You remind me of Evelyn Paglini. I feel like I have my own version of Evelyn Paglini here. Yeah,
they invited me back. I was on last Wednesday, I was on Coast to Coast again. Great people.
My friend Matthew Morning in the chat, he said Miss Ida is legit. You can see it on the chat there. I put it up on the screen.
I can't see what I don't mean to ignore everybody in the chat room. I apologize, but hello everybody. And okay. So anyway, I forgot what I was talking about, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So I'll get into some of this stuff. So you've emphasized the power of protection and spiritual hygiene. How did those principles tie into both of your new books?
With the spiritual hygiene?
Well, protection and spiritual hygiene.
I tell everybody all the time in every book that I write, okay, any type of magic that you perform, you need to have protection on you, okay? And someone just said I'm a lying idiot.
No, I think he was talking about someone in the chat. He was
Oh, oh, oh.
he's on
So,
Facebook anyway, so I can't get rid of him. I don't know.
so anyway, whenever you perform spell work, you ought to protect yourself. And here's a classic example, and I get this all the time. So Sally puts, I'm making up the name, right? Sally puts a love spell on Joey, right? And the love spell's not working, but it's affecting Sally. It's like, I'm more in love with him now than I've ever been. Well, that's because Sally didn't protect herself. So those energies come back to her. Okay. They're all around her. So I always tell people in all my spell books, all of them, all the books that I've written, you always have to protect yourself whenever you're doing spell work, especially when you're doing negative spell work, because those energies linger, right? So you need to protect yourself. You need to cleanse the workplace afterwards and make sure that there's no lingering energies hanging around. Keep your pets away from your work because the energies can cling on to them. So spiritual cleansing is very important. It's very important when you're going to cast spells.
What about money magic? Like, because a lot of our audience is like probably wanting to manifest money. Is there anything we can do that's like a quick, easy spell for, or any spells quick and easy for like money manifestation?
Well, first of all, in Figural Candle Spells and traditional hoodoo and conjure, I have a bunch of money spells in there. Okay. But things that you can do very, very fast, all right, is keep alfalfa, the herb alfalfa, in your left pocket. Okay. That draws money. Citrine, the crystal citrine. Get little itty bitty crystals. And I always have one in my checkbook. I always have one in my wallet, right? And if I can remember, I'll try to wear one in my left pocket. But I had a veterinarian who was doing very, very poorly. And he asked me to help him. And, I didn't want to spend anything like extravagant because he's not giving me any discounts, right? So I put a citrine in every one of his drawers. I put citrine any place that it involved bringing in clients and money and all that. And within a couple of months, his practice was blue. It just grew like crazy. And he had to end up getting another veterinarian to help him with his practice. It just bloomed. So you can do that. And another hoodoo trick is burn onion peels. Okay, I'm giving you quick and easy spells. Okay, burn onion peels, that brings money. And that's a very, very old hoodoo belief. Okay, and of course, when you burn the onion peels, make sure that your windows are open so that energy goes out, right? And fumitory herb, which is also called earth smoke, right? You can make a tea from that fumitory and bathe in it, right? And that'll give you those energies. Bayberry is wonderful. And back in the olden days, bayberry, Bayberry, back in the olden days, bayberry candles were very, very popular around Christmas time. And I don't know why they suddenly went away, but because bayberry draws in money, right? The people back then, and we're talking, it's kind of disappeared like 20 years ago, but for hundreds of years before that, they believed that, because Christmas time was costing a lot of money, right? They would burn bayberry candles to recover some of the losses they would buy for Christmas presents and things like that. So what I recommend is a bayberry glass encased candle. And the easiest thing you can do is have your picture facing upward and then place that bayberry candle over your picture. And you know where I put that? I put it in my bathtub. because it's going to burn for like 5 to 7 days. And whenever my business it starts to slow down, I do that. I light a bayberry glass encased candle. They're also called vigil candles. And I put that in my bathtub over my picture and just let it do its thing. I don't even pray. I don't even say a prayer. Nothing. I just set the candle and then my business starts booming again. Now, you guys got to remember that spells don't last forever, right? So, it helps my business for about 8 weeks. And then I'd have to do another one if business starts going down again. These are quick spells, right? And, I've got more involved spells in Figural Candle spell book. The pyramid candle is phenomenal for money. And I've got a lot of money spells in traditional hoodoo and conjure. And, they're not complicated. It isn't like you're going to, spend a zillion hours doing something.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then, how does candle work differ between the Hoodoo, Santeria, and Brujería? Do you blend elements of all those into your candle work? Or do you keep them distinct within your each practice?
Okay, so candles have been around for thousands of years, okay, in one form or another. And, when I write about in Figural Candle Spells, I tell you how the caveman, right, they had different forms of candle. Back then, they'd make a little lamp, right, and they would use moss as wicks and animal fat as oil, but they would go in their caves. And archaeologists have proven this, right, through findings. And they would go in caves with their candles, the ones that they first developed, right? And they would do rituals. So that is spread all around the world. And in Figural Candle Spells, I tell you, what the Japanese did, what these did, what that did. So candle work is incorporated in all metaphysical practices. It's not, contained to a few metaphysical practices. And we like candles for a few reasons, okay? Because the flame of a candle pierces the veil between our world and the spiritual world. It allows us to communicate with that other world freely, right? And if we're calling on an entity, let's say you're doing a novena to a saint, a 9-day candle, right? And you've got that veil pierced, you're better able to communicate with that saint. And that's the one thing it does. Another thing that the flame of the fire does is it provides energy, and you want energy output whenever you're performing any type of spell, right? And it provides energy, and this form of energy feeds the entity that you're helping. Now, the third thing that I address in Figural Candle Spells is get to know the flame. Because that spirit of fire that's right in front of your face can also help you manifest your desires. You speak to the flame itself, and that flame speaks back. And I teach you all of that in the book.
Yeah, I remember Evelyn Paglini saying that, like, you'll know if your candle spell is working because the candle will react to you. Like, the candle wick might grow bigger if you're getting a reaction. Is that true?
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I teach you how to do that too. I teach you all the candle language. I teach you all the smoke language. I teach you the wax language. So, that element of fire, which I view as a male element, he has a lot of ways of communicating back to you. You just have to know what he's saying. And in Figural Candle Spells, it's basically, I interpret everything for you. Okay. So, the behavior of that flame tells you a lot, and the behavior of the smoke, and how the candle wax is burning, and what it leaves, or melting, I should say, and then what it leaves behind. All these things tell you something.
Yeah. Do you incorporate any sigils in your new books? Like, do they go with candle magic at all, or do they go with hoodoo magic at all? Sigils?
Well, in hoodoo, I don't personally, okay, but in hoodoo they do incorporate sigils. they get them from the 6th and 7th book of Moses. And that comes from Africa also. And like in Palo. In Palo, we use a lot of symbols. A lot. Okay. And that comes from Africa. And you can see that also, they're in all the practices. I'm just telling you the ones that you might be the most familiar with. You'll see that in voodoo, right? And they have those bebes, they have all these different symbols. So yeah, they're used. I don't use them too much myself. I did when I was actively practicing Palo. In fact, we believe that God assigned every one of us our own sigil or symbol, which I have hid. It's so sacred that I have it locked in my safe deposit box because I don't want people knowing what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then for people that like want to stay on the light side of things, like you mentioned praying like novenas to the saints. Like, can praying novenas to the saints like accomplish certain goals and stuff like that? Like,
absolutely. And it's interesting because I do talk about that in my book, Traditional Hoodoo and Conjure, and I talk about the saints. I have a whole chapter, and there's different saints that will help you with different things, and it's really, really interesting. It's one saint will help you with this, like Saint Rita will help you if you're abused. Saint Dipna will help you, with emotional, if you're worried about somebody with emotional or mental health issues. I mean, there's a saint for everything, right? And
yeah.
it's just phenomenal. There's a saint for prisoners. There's a saint for drug addicts. It just goes on and on. There's a saint, and I've got all of this in the book. There's a saint, for people that are bullying you, right? And I've got all the prayers and how to do it. And I explain in the book how it works. Okay. And I compare it to hiring an attorney, to represent you in a case. And that's how I presented it in the book so that people get a clear idea, not a clear idea, but an exact knowledge of how this all works.
I wanted to show you this. If you can see it, let me see. I think it's a Saint Benedict. I got this from a witch store. I had a UFO meeting down in Pittsburgh, and at the time I had a really bad entity attachment, And the girl that was working at the witchcraft store, she said to me, she was Catholic. She said, "You need this," and she gave it to me. And this little coin, I think it's a Saint Benedict medal. It has so much power. There's so much energy in this coin. It helped me through my entity. By the way, I'm entity free now. I don't have any entity attachment anymore. And I've actually manipulate energy a little bit too.
Here's my Saint Benedict. It's wait a minute. I don't need to. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the exorcism code is in the front, right? And in the back there's Saint Benedict. Okay. And I always wear this, and you can find them on Amazon. They're called Saint Benedict Cross, and you've got the same thing, only you don't have the crucifix. And Saint Benedict, I have Saint Benedict in my book, Traditional Hoodoo and Conjure, and Saint Benedict, he and Saint Michael can kick the devil's butts. Okay, those two are great, but your medal actually, as does mine, your medal actually has the exorcism code on there.
No wonder it's so powerful. Yeah, it helped me out a lot. Like, I could draw energy from it and just like holding on to it and thinking I can manifest energy off me and like I can move energy off me and because that's like in my case when I had that entity attachment, it was just like I felt energy on me. I always felt like an uncomfortable energy, but now I don't feel that anymore. And even if I do start to feel it, I'm able to kind of just like bang, move it off me like that, and like it doesn't affect me anymore. It's pretty amazing.
Excellent. So the other thing too is when you're feeling kind of funny, just scream out Dominus, Dominus. Okay.
Dominus, like that.
Dominus, because demons don't like that. They don't like that at all. You know what I mean?
Dominus. Like Domino's pizza.
Say it three times. And that kind of, that'll kind of shake them off also. And they don't like that. So I wanted to talk about, really, really quick about, I know we don't have that much longer, but,
I can go to like not. I can go for a little bit longer. We're having fun. This is okay. I can go a little bit longer than an hour if you can.
I
Yeah.
want to talk about, protecting yourself around Samhain. Okay. And a good thing you can do, because, a lot of people will feed their ancestors because their ancestors will come home. You know what I mean? And a lot of them have something, the pagans do this. They call it a dumb supper, and they put out food for the dead at their table, and it either do it in silence or they play some kind of music. And my preference is to put the food outside because I don't want to be excellent. Yeah, Melly's got it. It's yeah. So anyway, I put food outside, so you can feed your ancestors that way. But if you're being bothered by malicious spirits, some of the things that you can do to put up protection is to get an iron cross and hang that up. All right, because they don't like that. If you feel something's at the door or something came in through the door, you can put ammonia in a spray bottle. If you feel that something's in the house that came in through the door, you can spray the air with ammonia, or you can spray all around with holy water. And, I've always had a problem with Halloween because that activity is prevalent, around this time. And I don't open and close the door for trick-or-treaters. I don't do it all because I've always had a bad feeling every time I open that door, right? So I sit outside and give out candy. I just don't open and close the door because I don't know what's entering. So, these are some of the ways that you can protect yourself, and make sure you do that too, because you never know what could be lingering around or could, come through. I did it a couple of times at Halloween when I used to. I did it probably twice that I opened and closed the door because it was just too doggone cold outside. And it was interesting because I had entities knock on the door and there were no trick-or-treaters outside. So it's like, ever since then, I've been super duper careful about opening and closing that door. Now, another thing you can do too is sea salt. If you can't afford to get this or don't have time or anything, get sea salt and get like mix a teaspoon of sea salt with warm water. Shake it up really, really good. Don't use a lot of salt because you can clog the tubing. And then put that in a spray bottle and you can spray that around the house. You can put a line of salt at your doorway and at the windows. Okay. You can also put a line of holy oil if you have access to it. And if you have any Eastern Orthodox churches around, they give out holy oil freely. Catholic churches don't, but the Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Arabic Orthodox, all those Orthodox churches.
That's what I grew up as. I grew up as a Eastern Orthodox. And my dad was Eastern Orthodox, and my mom was Roman Catholic. Yeah, I was going to ask you about holy water and Florida water. Like, I know we know everybody knows what holy water is, but not a lot of people know what Florida water is. I have some Florida water here. I use it. Which one do you think they're both is just as powerful?
So I get my holy water from Lourdes, France. I get it direct from Lourdes, France, and the reason I do holy water, what makes holy water different from water, regular water, is that once it's blessed, it changes the molecular, the structure. It changes not the composition, but the structure. The structure changes. Okay, and there's so many, and I'm Catholic, but there's so many bad priests out there, and I don't go to church anymore. I've just had so many bad experiences with Catholic priests. I mean, it's just like ridiculous. So I don't trust them to bless water. I trust the Orthodox priest. Okay. And by the way, my dad was Greek Orthodox. My dad was Greek. So I
Wow.
trust the Orthodox priests implicitly. So if you can go to an Eastern Orthodox church and get holy water, that's fine. I don't trust the Catholic churches, and I get mine direct from Lourdes, from the grotto where the Virgin Mary had appeared. That water's blessed, and the website is directfromlourdes.com, and that's where I get my holy water from. And again, the molecular, not the composition, but the structure changes once that water's blessed.
This is a question from Melly in the audience. Melly wanted to know. She says, "Could you tell us about that gorgeous dress behind you, Miss Ida?"
Dress? There's no dress. This is. I want to show off my Halloween shirt. Okay. These here.
I think she means what? Yeah.
Those are just. That's just material that I bought from a fabric store. There's no dress.
Yeah. Well, I like your Halloween shirt. It's nice. It's cool.
Thank you. I love my Halloween shirts.
Yeah, I look forward to these shows we do every year, and I think the audience looks forward to it too. They really enjoy it, So, yeah, I was going through. What about extra virgin? Sovereign Cosmic Wildman says extra virgin olive oil, preferably from Lebanon. What do you feel about that? Can that be good?
Okay, so what I do is for holy oil, I get mine from Israel, and Lebanon's just fine too. Just make sure that it's blessed by a priest. Okay, so in the United States, here's the interesting thing: which is really stupid. In the United States, you cannot buy a blessed rosary. You can't buy anything that's blessed. For some funny reason, it's illegal. Okay. So if you want holy oil that's been blessed, you have to get it from out of the country. Lebanon is a wonderful place to order it from also. Now, if you make your own holy oil and the recipe is in the Bible, okay, what I do is I get olive oil that was imported from Israel. It's very expensive, but the recipe in the Bible, I think, has like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's like 6 ingredients, and it's a sin to make the holy oil. It is a sin to follow that recipe. The beauty of it is one of the ingredients, nobody knows what the hell it is, right? So you can make the rest of it. You can use the extra virgin olive oil, like Sovereign, Cosmic says, and it's got 2 different types of cinnamon. It's got myrrh, okay? And if you follow that recipe, but you're going to have to cut it short because the recipe in the Bible makes buckets, right? You don't want that. You just want a couple of bottles. So you're going to have to use your calculator and do the math.
Wow, that's cool. And Jason wanted to know about Florida water. Like, I thought the audience knew what I was talking about, but I guess he doesn't know. What is Florida water exactly? Is it just like a?
Okay, so Florida water, and I get mine from Murray and Lamon, and that is a website, and that's what my parents are dead, and my they all use that Florida water from Lamon Kemp, and what I love about that Florida water, the Latin community and now the pagans are catching on, everybody, is that it has protection properties, spiritual protection. It has spiritual cleansing properties. Okay. And what I really loved about it around COVID time is it also has disinfectant properties too. So you can use Florida water to cleanse and, answer Jason's question. You can actually spray Florida water, put Florida water in in a spray bottle and spray that around the house also for cleansing and protection. So he's right. You can also use that, for when I talked about Samhain and the spirit, you can use that also. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. And the other thing I also do is when I wash clothes, and I feel like there might be some negative energy attached to it. So, when you're the washing, I don't know all the terminology, but when the washing machine is in the rinse cycle and it gets rid of the soap and then it starts spraying water to rinse, I also pour in some Florida water with that. so that it rinses with the Florida water. And that gets rid of the negative energies that may be attached to your clothing.
Yeah. Jason, I followed up with a question. He said, what's the potential blowback from spells and stuff? I'll kind of answer and I'll let you answer. But from what I know, Jason, like it can come back on you karmically times 10 if it's not justified. Could you get into that a little bit more, Miss Aida?
You just said it. You just answered the question. That's, you don't do things like that. I mean, that's just really, really bad. Okay. And bad things are going to happen to you. How many times have I seen that, one client cursed another client because she called her a bitch. Okay. That's no reason to curse somebody. You just call her right, call her up and call her a bitch. That's justified. But, I want you to get into a car accident or something really bad to happen to you because you called me that. That's baloney. There's something wrong with you. Okay. When you want that type of retaliation, no.
Yeah. And you're not supposed to kind of manipulate anybody's free will, right? With magic. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, that depends. So, I really, really think that if somebody has done horrible things to you and, I think they deserve it, but when you talk about free will, and, I think we've talked about this before. All right. If somebody was totally, totally gross to me, I couldn't look at that man. I couldn't do anything. Right. And he puts a love spell on me. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work because my free will is stronger. That man grosses me out. In fact, I'm not really giving you an example. I'm giving you the truth that it actually happened to me, that this man, that his behaviors were just totally unacceptable. I mean, totally sexual predator and just a disgusting guy who thought he was in love with me. And then he started putting love spells on me. Well, how I knew right away was I woke up and I started having nice thoughts about him. I got rid of it immediately. Okay. So there, my free will sits in. Okay. If you're arguing and screaming at somebody and then you put a love spell or a reconciliation spell on them, the other thing you've got to remember is that your magic and your behaviors have got to complement each other. Okay. Or else the magic isn't going to work. In both books, Figural Candle Spells and Traditional Hoodoo and Conjure, I talk about free will. I talk about how spells work, why spells don't work, and most of the time when a spell doesn't work, it's your fault. But if it's somebody's free will, which is also an example in that book, okay, I just really, really doubt in my mind that I could make the king of Saudi Arabia fall in love with me. Okay, I'm just like a peanut compared to him. You know what I'm saying?
It has to be something realistic, right?
Reasonable. Pardon me?
Yeah. It has to be something realistic, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but still, can love spells go horribly wrong? Like I feel like a couple women have done love spells on me, because one day I'll just be normal, then the next thing I'm like head over heels for a new woman, and I'm like all gung ho, and like I felt at times like I was under like a magic spell. Like I've never asked them about it, but that's happened to me a couple times.
Okay, so what you do is you get nettle, nettle. You get nettle and you make a tea out of that nettle and you drink it and you will get rid of and then spray yourself with Florida water, Jason. Okay. Jason reminded me of the Florida water. Spray yourself with Florida water or spray yourself with holy water, drink some nettle tea and spell's broken.
Wow, that's amazing. And then, guys, if you have any questions for Miss Aida, put them in the chat, and we'll get to them. And let me see here what other questions I have for you. Sovereign Cosmic Wildness says nettle is good for prostate health as well, which is it's interesting.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Oh, put that up. Let me see. That should be something that should be flashed on your screen. I didn't know that. Nettle good for prostate. Wow, thank you. I did not know that. I know it had antibacterial properties, but this is great to know.
Yeah, yeah. Like, um, what are some? Well, okay, here's one. Well, this is one of my questions. What are some common mistakes people can make when working with candle magic or hoodoo magic?
What is what? Where's the question?
Common mistakes people can make when dealing with candle magic or hoodoo magic.
Okay, so when the mistakes it can make when performing candle magic, there's a lot of mistakes you can make, and I list them all in that book. Alrighty, so first of all, the fire safety, that's number one. Okay, so you don't want to ever leave your candles unattended and so on and so forth. If you do need to, walk away from them, put them in the bathtub or shower. But some of the mistakes you can make is using the wrong candle color, using the wrong candle dressings, saying inappropriate petitions, ignoring the communication that's coming from the flame or the smoke or the wax. All right. So those are some of the common mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. And then though, guys, the live stream, the Halloween party is at 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Jason. So yeah, they'll start tomorrow. And then let me see here. You often teach about spiritual discernment. How can practitioners tell when a candle spell has truly taken effect?
And that would be in the book, Figural Candle Spells. You have to buy the book to find out.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So, but you can tell. You can tell. There's a lot of positive signs. All right. Now, just to clarify something, when your candle spell is successful, all right, and there's all these different ways that you can tell. I don't have time to explain this, why I said just get the book. It is simply acknowledging, your spirits are acknowledging that they've heard you and they will try to help you. Okay. That's what a successful candle spell does. It's communicating. It's about communication. So you've got a good chance because they're helping you. Is it 100% guaranteed? No. All right. So let's just say I want Andy Garcia to come to me, or I should use some other guy. Joe Blow. I want Joe Blow to come to me, and I want him to love me, and I want him to come to me. And spirits, giving me a positive candle results, right? The spirit of fire. It's like, oh, we heard it. We're going to try and help you. But he can't, he could love me, but he can't come to me because he's in jail or he's in prison. You know what I'm saying? So you got to think about what's going on in the mundane world also.
Yeah. And then this is from Amanda Joan of Heart. She's a guest on my show. She says one of her friends is saying that the St. Benedict coin is the answer to get rid of evil. And another friend is saying that it's black magic. And that the whole Catholic religion is black magic. What do you think? I would say that there's obviously some evil in the Catholic Church. We know that from what the priests have done. But then there's also some good in every religion, too. Just like there's good in Buddhism, there's good in Islam. There's some good in every religion. I don't know. What do you think, Miss Aida?
Well, I don't think that the Catholic Church is black magic, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion. You know what I'm saying? Let's see, is getting rid of evil, and I don't understand. Now I all we have to do is cordially agree to disagree with that statement.
Okay, yeah. And I'm going through the comments. So we got the other comments. So you think the St. Benedict coin does really help? Then it's like a because I've had good experiences with it.
Oh yeah.
And
who
was St.
Someone told me that, and I've been doing this forever. So I was really, really shocked. So, whenever I do a television show or something, and especially if we're dealing with demons, I hand everybody a St. Benedict coin like you have. Okay. I hand the camera crew, everybody. Okay. And I found out that Lorraine Warren, Ed and Lorraine Warren, the exorcist people from The Conjuring, I found out she did the exact same thing. So I don't know who was doing it longer because I've been doing that for, I mean, I've got a ton of those medals, those coins, you call them. I got a ton of them. I've been doing them for decades, handing them out.
Wow. This is from Anchor Haven. She's one of my moderators. She says, is it showing up? It says, she says she gets snake entities in her throat. Where do they come from and why?
Okay, that I can't tell you. I mean, that almost sounds to me like something, we're getting into something a little bit different. Like that sounds to me like a Kundalini thing. And it sounds to me like, you know, Kundalini is kind of like the snake thing. And it's along your chakras. I would say that you need to get your chakras balanced. I really, really do. That's what it sounds like to me. You know, when I read this, Anchor Haven, I'm not startled or scared. Okay. The first thing that I asked myself when I read your entry is, you know, is this an evil thing? But then Spirit said it's your Kundalini is out of balance. It's your throat chakra, especially.
Yeah, and that's what she does. She uses her throat. She speaks a lot. She's a speaker. You know what I mean? She comes on my show and she speaks for a living. You know what I mean? It's basically what she does. She speaks. So, like, maybe do you think she could be getting attacked in her throat chakra by entities or something?
Do the same thing I recommended: drink the nettle tea, spray yourself. But what I would do if I were you is I would wear turquoise. Okay, something big, turquoise. Okay, that's great for your throat.
Yeah. This is Susan Phoenix. She says St. Benedict's cross is supposed to be very powerful.
It is.
Let me see here. I was just kind of going through some of the more of the comments. I was looking for the best comments to put up.
I found one that I have to address, and that's Iron Bear. I grew up Catholic and always felt uncomfortable during Mass. If you look around and everyone looks like they are in some kind of trance, it's weird, but I've noticed it a few times growing up. And I have to tell you something that I've noticed too, okay, is a lot of these Catholic Church members view their priest as a rock star, okay? And it's almost, some of these priests, I got to tell you, it's almost like they've started their own cult. And my last experience with the last church where I told the priest to go F himself, okay, that was definitely a cult behavior. Cult, not occult, cult behavior. And no matter what this guy said, it was like, oh, he spoke. You know what I mean? And it was just awful. Here's a man that talks about vanity is a sin, but he's wearing a toupee. He talks about gluttony as a sin, and he's a walking house. Okay. And then what he likes to do is to come into church in the sideways so you can't see him, and talks into a microphone to make himself sound like God. That stuff pisses me off. Okay.
Yeah, you know what, Miss Aida? Didn't Jesus say, you know, like they took a lot of stuff out of the Bible, but one thing they didn't take out that stuck with us is Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. So it's like, why can't we just have a personal relationship with Jesus on our own time and not even have to mess with churches, you know, if we don't want to?
That's how I feel. I mean, God is in every one of us. Every one of us. Okay. And, you know, I don't know. I don't understand. Well, I mean, we're social animals too, right? So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, people would do like to get out and do stuff.
The thing is that the church leaders have just corrupted religion. You know, the Apostles' Creed, you know, for those of you who are Catholic or Methodist, okay? And the one part says, I believe in the Holy Catholic Church. I won't say it, okay? I'll say I believe in the Holy Catholic religion, but I won't say I believe in the Holy Catholic Church. I just won't say it because the church is corrupted. Now, my really, 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 really good friend, her name is Sister Carol, Karol, and she's a Catholic nun, okay? But she believes in the metaphysical. In fact, she wrote a book on spells, right? But she also wrote a book called The Silence We Keep. And she exposed everything in the Catholic Church, the sexual pedophiles, the people that go to bed with, make love to animals. It's just horrible. Okay.
Oh God, that's disgusting. Yeah.
Oh, it's awful. It's called The Silence We Keep. It's devastating. I read that book. I almost threw up. I was like, I'm very proud of, she's a good friend of mine. I was very proud of her for doing it. That took a lot of balls, but she did it. And she's the best. She's a very, very dear friend of mine.
This is a question from Sovereign Cosmic Woman. He says, serious question. He says, are witches a race? Certain witch type of women have a particular laugh cackle that is distinct, he says.
Serious question. Are witches a race? A certain witch type women have a peculiar laugh cackle that is distinct. I personally believe, and this is just me, I'm not giving you a definite answer, okay? I've noticed that people with that laugh cackle are usually evil people. And that's the way I've always seen it. Interacting with them, they're evil.
Yeah. Well, we had some really good questions coming tonight, and Mystifying Mark says, happy Samhain, Miss Aida.
Oh, thank you. Happy Samhain to you too, sweetheart.
Yeah, but this was amazing. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? Do you want to plug the books one more time before we go? And thank you, Miss Aida. This was so much fun. I enjoyed this.
It's great. Okay, so I'm pushing these two books because they were just published. So Figural Candle Spells. You can get this on Amazon. Conjuring Magic with the Power of Fire. I mean, I even have illustrations in here on how to do certain things. Am I going the wrong way? There's all kinds of, I've got every possible type of candle, every single type of candle spell that I think I've got 70 different spells in here. Okay. 40 different candle types and illustrations. And you will know candles inside and out. You will know candle communication inside and out with this book. Traditional hoodoo and conjure, I will take you all the way back to the 1600s with the Atlantic slave trade, and I will bring you up to this day and show you and tell you how magic evolved, how hoodoo evolved. And then I will have, thank you, Jason. Are you my Jason by any chance? Is that my Jason?
He's my moderator, Jason Hart or Jason H. I don't want to say his last name.
So, and I've got a whole bunch of spells. The way to do it's a traditional way. It's not a junk hoodoo book. And the problem is there's so many people that just wake up one day and say, I'm a hoodoo practitioner, and here are a bunch of spells, and they publish these books that are crap. Okay, I give you the real deal. The real deal. And you know exactly why you're doing things. And you will be very comfortable because you're working with the saints. You're working with God. You're working with Jesus. You're working with the Holy Spirit. Okay? You're working with good entities. And there's, spells in there like you asked, quick and easy spells for money, for good luck. There's all kinds of stuff in there for you.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm gonna get a copy myself. And yeah, I'd love to do this next year, but maybe even before next year. I always enjoy having you on the show.
Anytime, I adore you. So anytime you want me on, just let me know and I'll be there anytime.
Awesome. And I have her website on the screen, guys. It's missaida.com. And thank you everybody who tuned in tonight, and thank you everybody who tunes in after. And happy Samhain, everybody, and happy fall festival. And I'll see you guys all tomorrow night.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. And thank you, Miss Aida. Thank you, everyone. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night for the Halloween event. And have a good night, everyone.